the movie has successfully taught you how to watch it by this point. You can react appropriately the way the director wants you to react to this scene. The movie opened with this, I'd be uncomfortable. Like, is this supposed to be funny or really serious? But I have permission to laugh at this incredibly sad situation because the movie has taught me I can and should.
The best movies use their opening to teach you how to watch them. We're going to look at how Fight Club teaches you how to watch Fight Club. Alex, I want you to hit me as hard as you can. Let's begin.
So yeah, just in the first opening moments, this movie's putting voiceover in your face, and it's a very, very particular type of voiceover.
People are always asking me if I know Tyler Durden.
3 minutes. This is it. Ground zero. Would you like to say a few words to mark the occasion?
With a gun barrel between your teeth, you speak only in vowels.
I can't think of anything.
For a second, I totally forget about Tyler's whole controlled demolition thing, and I wonder how clean that gun is.
In some movies, we have kind of a voice of God, Morgan Freeman voiceover, kind of an omniscient narrator. Others, it's clearly somebody kind of writing a book or reflecting back on a time. This narration you cannot place in those categories. This is something that's kind of reacting to the moment. It's interjecting in between lines. And it's also even having this kind of, it's like, is this in his head right now? This observational humor of, I stop to wonder how clean this gun is. So right away, you are being oriented as an audience that this is not your typical voiceover experience. This is something different. And it's almost literary in a way. It feels like the kind of access you have to a character's head in a novel. It's not, once again, like kind of your traditional movie voiceover. So we can play a little bit further into the scene.
Real quick, I was watching an interview with Jim Oles where he was talking about, in a book, an author can tell you what the character is thinking. In a screenplay, you can't do that unless you use voiceover, right? You otherwise have to show what they're doing. And he said very early on, Fincher said, I don't want the voiceover to like help the audience in any way. I don't want it to like inform the plot or whatever. I want it to just be sort of commentary, or in some ways actually do the opposite. Like what the narrator is saying is the opposite of what you're seeing, or is not quite consistent with it.
And that actually ties into the next piece of narration, which is completely mystifying, actually, on a first viewing.
That old saying, how you always hurt the one you love? Well, it works both ways. We have front row seats for this theater of mass destruction. The demolitions committee of Project Mayhem wrapped the foundation columns of a dozen buildings with blasting gelatin.
Pause it there.
In 2 minutes,
so
primary
right there,
charges.
we get this kind of, once again, literary phrase. We don't know what it means yet about, the ones, you hurt the ones you love. It goes both ways. And then it goes right into, Project Mayhem has rigged all these buildings to blow with nitroglycerin. It's completely disorienting.
What?
And so, it's not helping you at all. But what it is doing is just kind of saying, buckle up. This is not going to be a conventional movie. This is not going to hold your hand. Just kind of go with the flow, because you're not going to get it on this first viewing.
Uh-huh.
And so I think we can skip ahead to around 3 minutes, 10 seconds. Because that's where, the next kind of trait of the voiceover really, I think, comes to the fore. I'm going to play this.
Bob had bitch tits. This was a support group for men with testicular cancer. The big moosey slobbering all over me, that was Bob.
We're still men. Yes, we're men. Men is what we are.
8 months ago, Bob's testicles were removed, then hormone therapy. He developed bitch tits because his testosterone was too high and his body upped the estrogen.
Okay, you can
and that
pause
was where
there.
I fit.
They're gonna have to.
So I think right there, we are talking, we're jumping into this scene and just saying bitch tits right away. And there's this serious situation of men who are undergoing cancer treatment, and the movie has this dry observational humor about the kind of absurdity of it all. And it's really, it's making it clear this movie is going to have a very particular type of humor that, once again, you have to kind of get on board with. And so you're not going to be surprised later in the movie when we have this kind of dark, observational, dry humor. It's being established right up front, right from the get-go, with this Bob had bitch tits scene.
And
Yeah.
it's making light of a very serious issue. To your point, it is finding humor in something incredibly dark. And these people have cancer, and we're making fun of them, really.
Right.
And as we get to know Bob a little bit better in this scene, we come to see that he's this really kind, sensitive person who really wants to be helpful to the Edward Norton character, and he's pretty relentlessly making fun of him in the voiceover, which tells us a
Right.
lot about the narrator, rather than it does much more than it does about Bob.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'll say the last moment I noticed that was kind of another teaching you how to understand the voiceover was about 3 minutes and 50 seconds in. And that's when we jump again. We kind of jump to this Bob sequence, and then we jump again to the next sequence.
No, wait, back up. Let me start earlier. For 6 months, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. With insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Pause it there. So even just in that brief moment, we are establishing that this narrator is going to just kind of take you on this stream of consciousness ride. We can be in a scene, we think we're kind of orienting ourselves to the Bob scene, but it's like, nope, never mind. Actually, I got to go back further. So there's that. In this scene, we have even the narration itself taking on a quality of his mental state. So, when he says, I couldn't sleep, he kind of repeats, I couldn't sleep over the shot of him just with a copy machine. And so it just shows you that like this movie is all about putting you in the headspace of this character. This is not, once again, an omniscient kind of narration or omniscient storytelling. This is very much subjective storytelling. And everything in this opening sequence is telling you, you are relying on this narrator. You're in his head. His head's a little weird. He's not sleeping. He's bouncing around. Maybe don't trust everything you're seeing or hearing. So I think there's just so much the voiceover does in the first, 4 minutes here that kind of teaches you how to experience this movie and how to understand this character who's narrating it.
And real quick, if you back up to where he says, wait, let me go back. The fact that diegetically in the movie, the narrator is going like, hey, wait a minute,
So it's like in this moment, like there's that kind of like magical realism of like in this moment, he's actually deciding to go back, even though this is a flashback.
Later on, when they're doing the whole like waiter Tyler kind of montage where he's like eating with some people and then he turns to camera and wipes his mouth and then like explains like to whatever, it almost has that like what we now consider like the Deadpool kind of like I'm going to turn and talk to the camera kind of element to it, which is fun.
Yeah I think this is a great example of how to use breaking the fourth wall to establish the psychology of the character, like you're saying, Alex, and do not just logistical help us orient, but also help us disorient. Let us like understand the tone, humor, all the things of the movie. If you're going to use a tool, use it efficiently to do lots of things at once. This movie does that super well.
Yeah. And jumping back, if we can, to the opening scene where we've got the gun in Edward Norton's mouth. I was paying close attention this time to all of the characterization in this opening sequence and what it teaches you about, especially about Tyler and about the narrator, but, hinting at Marla as well. So this first shot that we see of the Edward Norton character, he looks really genuinely scared for like a second. But then when we pull back, his eyes like kind of flick up towards Tyler. And then he says, any last words to mark the occasion? And then this look.
And vowels.
I can't think of anything.
He says, I can't think of anything, but not in like a totally terrified, please don't kill me kind of way. If this were any typical scene with like a kidnapper and a hostage, there's unfamiliarity, there's confusion, there's like genuine fear for your life at every second. And instead what we have is this intimacy between these two characters that's established really early on. What were you
Also
going to say,
like that-
Michael?
Well, just that, like, because he asks the question while the gun is still in his mouth, and he goes, "Brr, brr, brr, brr."
Yep.
But like that's in the script. Like that's an
Yeah.
important part of setting that characterization. Yeah.
Mostly
Mhm.
vowels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And what he says is not grandiose or self-important. It's just this kind of throwaway, I can't think of anything. And then again, we get this, the whole way that this scene is staged conveys so much about who these two people are and what their relationship is. Tyler walks around, he isn't bothering to look at him. He isn't keeping him at gunpoint. He isn't worried that the narrator is going to try something. There's this very unusual relationship that we're being dropped into the middle of, or actually into the end of here, a culmination of something that we're coming to understand. And it's all of the details of how it's executed really matter. And they've kind of lodged themselves in your mind where we know then that this movie is going to be about these two people, these two characters, and that whatever goes on between them isn't going to reach its climax until we get back here. So we're being set up for something to pique our curiosity and to plunge us into this relationship, really, which is what the whole movie is going to be. And actually, the first line in the movie, we heard it a few minutes ago. People are always asking me if I don't know Tyler Durden. So it gets the character name right up front, and again, creates that mystery around the Tyler character.
And just the body language, even though we don't see his face, we don't see him really clearly. He's
Yeah.
already iconic in just the silhouette, the Brad Pitt silhouette here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yes. The costume design helps though too, right? Like he looks at that
Absolutely,
watch
for
on his
sure.
belt loop or whatever that is. Yeah, and the stance says so much. It's also unclear. The direction never shows us whether or not the narrator is even tied up. For all we know, he isn't even tied up. He's just sitting
Right.
there, which
Mhm.
raises the question, why in the world is he just sitting there? Like, what is going on in this scene and in this sequence? And then, of course, we come to know pretty quickly that there's really high stakes and this explosion is going to go off. That being said, then the Marla character is at least name dropped pretty early on. This all has something to do with a girl named Marla Singer. I'm sorry, I don't
The
have the time
gun, the
code handy.
bombs, the revolution
There we go.
has got something to do with a girl named Marla Singer.
That cut you highlighted earlier, Alex. It's right before that. I love the ticking clock sound there too. It's really good. But so then we know immediately that there's all of this is going to be wrapped up in another character we haven't met yet, a girl named Marla Singer. And then we go into this scene with Bob. Now, when we get back to Tyler, if we can skip ahead a little bit. Sorry, not back to Tyler. I apologize. Back to the narrator in his normal life.
Also known as Tyler.
Also known as Tyler.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. When we first meet him in this corporate setting, we know he can't sleep. Okay. We meet him in this corporate setting, and there's this so oppressively blah, normal, corporate, soulless, bland. Look at the coloring here, right? The copy light on his face.
The flying through the trash can as he imagines that once we colonize space, all galactic entities will be named after corporations.
Right. Yeah. His normalness, like his everymanness, is on full display, but also the diagnosis of one of the core themes of the movie, which is this consumerist, capitalist, like corporate culture, that this is what has enslaved him. Look at the body language here is saying so much. So the character design is setting up the themes of the movie right out of the gate. And it's, yeah.
I also love that, they introduce his boss with a shot of the tie. Like,
Yeah.
Tie.
the important part that he's caring about, that he's looking at, is the tie. And it's putting you in his perspective and also signaling the things that he cares about and what's important in this world.
And even thematically, that this is just like a faceless person. Like this is a corporate entity.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed is that we're, however far we are into the movie already, we haven't been outside yet. Like we basically never are. We very rarely are outside in this movie, but the spaces that the characters inhabit, again, it's building the story world while it's building the characters. And the story world is an offshoot or an extension of the characters, and the characters represent the theme. And then, of course, we see a flash of Tyler, right, when he's talking to the doctor.
Yeah, we've got several. Yeah.
Yeah, because we got
Copy the
one.
copy.
It's going to be
somewhere in
there.
Oh, there it
There he is. Yep.
They're so funny when you actually pause on them.
They're great.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, we have that.
Oh, yeah, and the IKEA
and
sequence,
then-
so important for the characterization here. Again, the spaces we're in, all the fluorescent lighting, all the, yeah.
Oh.
It's so great. It's perfect.
Real quick, go back to one of the lines, like the first line the doctor says, and just play the audio of that.
No, you can't die for insomnia.
So that voice is almost what I would picture the narrator of this movie sounding like. Just Stephen Wright, monotone, whatever. Edward Norton, his like weirdly like childlike voice, you know, it adds this other, because it's almost like he can be monotone without it sounding quite as monotone as it is. There's something about the quality of his voice. It just made me think of it with the doctor.
Well, I think Edward Norton's performance in the voiceover, it has that I've been hollowed out by my corporate life. You know, the affect is just like, I'm so hollow now, and so even the darkest things I'm delivering with the same kind of flat affect as, you know, the happy things. Everything is flat in my world.
Well, and I didn't want to step on the toes of what you were saying too much, Alex, but the voiceover itself is doing so much of the character work.
Yes.
Because it's telling us this character does not have a facade, at least not to us, right? The way that he's speaking to us in voiceover has this very intimate quality to it, where he's not trying to make himself look good the way that people do when you meet them in real life, right? He's very unvarnished. It's like the raw truth of what he believes about everything. And that in itself tells us so much about who we're going to be on this journey with in this movie.
The makeup in this movie is so good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's crazy good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. All right. Brian, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, we've touched on so much of it already, but I was thinking about tone, and you guys hit a lot of it, which is the way that it is this sort of dry, dark humor thing that it's doing, you know. And Trisha, you called out, if you go back to the opening, well, we don't have to spend too much time on it because we've already been there a couple times, but it's like everything here, there's some light jokes, like I can't think of anything, kind of his delivery, like you were saying, Trisha, I wonder how clean that gun is, but it's not really comedy yet. And then at 3:08, then we cut to the Bob had bitch tits, which is like a comedy jump scare, because it's like the line itself, the like giant boob with the nipple, you know, the like there's so much happening here that is like as comedic as the movie ever gets, basically. After this like very dark, things are going to blow up. Visually, the tone is so dark and everything. It's the whole movie it is, but at least here it's not like just dark blacks. And I used to work in those twin buildings.
They're gone now.
Oh, yeah. And then, yeah, so then we go into this like narrator apathy, dry humor thing. It's interesting in the voiceover, as you guys were just talking about, he doesn't have a facade, but he's also talking about himself in the past tense, as narration is. So it's not saying, here's what I currently believe. It's, I was a slave to this whole IKEA thing. I was this kind of person. These are the things I was, right? Which is almost like you're talking in retrospect about the kind of person you used to be. But it also shows like there's kind of it's almost like apathy even about your own value system. It's just like, yeah, I'm obsessed with this IKEA stuff. Not like, you know, when he talks about I got that couch and I'm so happy I got that couch. Now I don't have to worry about that anymore. That's like the closest he ever gets to being like, this is my value system that I really hold dear. He's just so apathetic and just kind of moving through life the whole way. And then if we kind of have this like theme stated moment here where it's sort of the value system, the planet Starbucks, the kind of, these are the ideas we're going to be talking about.
While we're on this IKEA scene, I always am really struck by he's almost identifying the kind of the shallow happiness that comes from getting
Right.
the yin yang table or the bowl with like handcrafted bowls that have tiny imperfections because they were made by some authentic tribe somewhere or other, and
From
it's,
wherever.
yeah, and I think it's just great
Mhm.
because it's like both he kind of cares and notices these things, but they're also like mass produced, and he has no connection to this narrative about where this corporate product came from. And so I just think it's a perfect representation of like the dopamine that one can get from a purchase and how immediately it evaporates and
Fleeting.
it's so
Yeah.
meaningless.
Right.
And I think this whole IKEA sequence just captures that, and his voiceover is doing so much of that work because he's saying he knows a lot about these products and he cares about these things about these products, and yet his affect says this is completely hollow and flat and meaningless.
If all of these things make you happy, he has a room full of happiness. Why
Right.
not the happy?
Why he must be the happiest. Yeah. It's actually, it just occurred to me, American Psycho came out 1 year later.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very similar, like
Yep.
corporate voiceover. Here are the things I do because that is what brings me joy. I have told myself, or
Right.
it has been told to me that these are good things to have. And then yeah, if we could jump forward, then since we've spent a lot of time in this part to around 7:20, when we get into this sequence. So this is kind of a culmination, I think, of now we've learned this movie is kind of going to be irreverent, right? It is not. It's not as trying to be as cool as it could be. It's not trying to be as like emotional or thematically whatever as it could. It's just kind of like it very dry humor, very irreverent. So if you watch this scene, the way that the performance happens here from the guy who's speaking,
And I see a lot of courage, and that gives me strength.
everybody's extra.
We give each other strength. It's time for the one-on-ones, so let's
Yeah. So I was talking
Yeah.
about the guy before, the guy who's talking about
Mm,
his wife.
Oh.
Oh yeah, the long monologue. Of,
yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, if this scene opened the movie, you might
Right.
not, you wouldn't know
Right.
that this was kind of tongue in cheek, right? But like the way he's like, because she deserves it or whatever. But now that you've had this first like 7 minutes of the movie, you watch this kind of with this weird, perverse giggling almost, right? At like how serious everybody is. The guy's like, "Thank you, Thomas."
It's such a great example of the movie has successfully taught you how to watch it by
Yep.
this point.
Right.
And so you can react appropriately the way the director wants you to react to this scene. But you're
Right.
you're so right. If the movie opened with this, I'd be uncomfortable. I'm like, is this supposed to be funny or really serious or what? But I have permission to laugh
Right.
at this incredibly sad situation because the movie has taught me I can and should.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the note that I made was just irreverence over empathy. And I feel like that kind of like follows this whole movie. So then when we get finally the climax of Bob says, "Okay, you can cry now." 9 minutes ish. Yeah, here we go. Like when he finally cries, it should be this cathartic moment, and instead it goes into the the like imprint, like
Mhm.
clown face imprint on Bob's giant chest
Yeah.
into like babies don't sleep this well. It's like even the moment that feels like it's supposed to be the emotionally cathartic moment is irreverence over empathy. Like we're still going to laugh. It's going to be a fun time. And I just feel like that's what this whole movie is. It's very rare. Like this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I don't feel like I'm gonna cry when I watch it. I feel like I'm kind
Right.
of laughing at it the whole time. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think highlighting, as you guys were saying, like this scene, you know how to watch it, you receive it differently. That's what the beginning of a movie is supposed to be doing and teaching you. And I feel like it can go like with these macro things, the things that are sort of obvious and in your face, like the voiceover and setup stuff. But I nerd out about like the tiny little thing. So I'm gonna get microscopic. So in this moment that you were talking about, where he has this big like breakdown, there's an uncomfortable silence that happens afterward as people kind of react to it. So, and the sound of the creaking chairs as people shift uncomfortably in their chairs is exactly right in the beat where you want it and kind of mixed up. And I feel like that sound helps highlight the funniness of it. Like it's an amplified, you feel the awkwardness of the chair shifting.
Also a siren going off, like kind of ruining the moment.
And so the sirens are another big part of it. There are sirens constantly throughout this first like section. So like people are talking.
Where does it lead?
Yeah.
And sirens are in the background. People are talking. Not there. But basically like in every scene where there could conceivably be a siren, there's a siren happening.
It's still in 7 mode of mass destruction. The demo,
just like so, and that's that's giving you texture about the world, right? We don't need to see anything about it, but we know that he's in a place that is probably not the best place if there's constantly sirens happening.
It is undercutting the kind of the sacredness of all of these, cancer support groups. It's just like they can't even have peace. Like there's sirens blaring.
Right. So yeah, using sound to kind of build out the the world of your story, I think is really important. And then also Ren Kleiss, the sound designer, does a great job of filling these in-between moments of silence with punctuation sound effects that keep up the rhythm. And I think it's subconscious, but it keeps you along for the ride and keeps you tuned in while the movie is kind of teaching you and bringing you along for the ride. So even just this tiny moment between these two lines.
Heard the one you love? Well, it works both ways.
You hear the chair creak of like the ones you love. Well, it works both ways. Like there's a rhythm that happens to that. And just throughout the movie, there are these like great moments of punctuating movements also where like the boss is like
primary action items. Here's your flight coupons. Call me from the
like using the sound effects to like add a rhythm to like this is the thing, pop, this is the thing. I think it helps create the smooth ride that this opening takes you on, because it does feel like a ride. You press start on this movie and it just goes and you're swept away. And it's these little uses of like these tiny punctuation moments that fill out the world and make it fun, and then some that are just obvious like character defining things.
Can you go back to the very beginning before the credit sequence? Because what you're talking about reminds me of the very, very, very first thing you hear. Yep. Which is basically like, here's an orchestral swelling of music and then a record scratch. And then, the Dust Brothers.
Or like a radio dial. Or...
Yep.
Oh, yeah. We got the Fox and then.
Yeah. Listen to this.
Yeah, it's right.
Yep. I mean, that's exactly what you're saying. It's like, here's what you might expect from the beginning of this movie. Nope, it's this other thing instead. So buckle up. And of course, we haven't even talked about the camera flying around in this opening sequence, but it's teaching you the visual language of the movie as well.
Right. Also, we're in his head, very literally.
We're literally in his head.
Very
it's telling you the whole thing, right?
The whole thing. Right. And I feel like that's what you want from an opening. It should teach you everything you need to know to watch it. It should be kind of telling you the whole story, like what this story is going to be about this thing. Even if you don't consciously understand this is, the arc that the character is going to go on, you are primed for that journey. And this movie is using the writing, the directing, the light. We didn't talk about the lighting also, but just like everybody's eyes are in shadow, like everybody is dead, like no one has
Spielberg.
A soul. So visuals, sound, writing, all the things to create this amazing buildup that by then you're pretty hooked as Marla.
And then Marla walks right in looking like that.
This is cancer, right?
It's perfect.